Tensions between moose and squirrel aficionado Volodymyr Zelensky and his top general spark worry in the West and on the front line. Speculation stirs in Ukraine that the president might dismiss his popular armed forces chief. This is a very Stalin Zhukov kind of situation. Western officials and Ukrainian soldiers are warning that rising tensions between President Volodymyr Zelensky and his top general could hamper the country's war effort against Russia. The strains flared into view this week with speculation in Ukrainian political circles and news media that Zelensky was planning to dismiss General Valery Zaluzhny, I think I said that right, the commander-in-chief of Ukraine's armed forces. The tensions add to problems for Ukraine, you think, including challenges on the battlefield after the failure of a counteroffensive last year aimed at taking back some of the nearly 20% of its territory that is under occupation. Russian forces are back on the offensive after that Ukrainian military effort involving thousands of troops trained and equipped by the West withered in the face of well-prepared defenses. Ukraine is also facing a crunch in military and financial support as internal political disputes in the U.S. and the European Union have stalled proposed aid. I'm just going to interject here and have time to delve into it, but I did see something saying that the EU has just approved $50 billion in aid because Viktor Orban decided to go along. But to continue. Too many.
It's like saying Grey's Anatomy renewed for 3 more seasons, way past anyone cares. That's like what the Ukraine war is now.
You know, I mean, you can print more money, but you can't print more humans. Not yet. Elon is working on that, but so far they cannot 3D print more soldiers. To many in Ukraine and in the West, the tensions reek of the factionalism and political jockeying that has impaired Ukraine's government for decades. Oh, you mean the most corrupt country in Europe? Like that kind of problems? Ousting Zaluzhny now could risk undermining military and public morale, as well as relations with the West at a critical moment in the war. The 50-year-old general is a career military man who has served as Ukraine's top military officer since 2021. He is widely respected by Ukraine's soldiers and Western partners, and the only person who rivals Zelensky for popularity in public opinion polls. That is really Stalin and Zhukov. Signs of discord between the two leaders, long dismissed as rumors by aides, emerged after Zelensky referred to the war as a stalemate. Keaton, like you referred to the war as a stalemate. And you never heard the end of it. He referred to the war as a stalemate in an interview with The Economist last fall, saying Ukraine needed a major upgrade to military capabilities if it hoped to expel Russian forces from Ukrainian territory. Zelensky rejected that characterization of the war. No, we are clearing Russian forces very quickly. More recently, differences have surfaced over how to fill Ukraine's ranks to hold off the larger Russian army. Zelensky has said he needs more resources, including hundreds of thousands more troops to replace dead, injured, and exhausted fighters. Yeah, you never want to do that. Tell the truth. That never goes well with political leaders when their generals start telling the truth. Who was that guy? No, people in the chat will remember. Keaton, I'll be really impressed if you remember. This happened at the beginning of the Iraq War. There was a general who told the truth about what it would take, that it wasn't going to be wrapped up in 2 weeks. And it was
that Shinseki?
Was that Shinseki? Is that who that was?
I think it may have been. I don't know.
But you remember what I'm talking about?
The only
there was
reason
one general who
Shinseki
told the
rings a bell.
truth.
Yeah, John Kerry cited General Shinseki a bunch of times during the campaign as having called it right. So that's why that name, it would be my guess.
So it sounds.
But yeah, I mean, if you're a general, you don't talk like this. If you're a general,
right?
You know, I mean, that's rule number one. Always.
It's kind of stepping on Zelensky's dick.
There you go. Oh, yeah, like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Zelensky has publicly, Keaton's funny like that. He things like that stick with him. Zelensky has publicly questioned the cost of a large increase in military personnel and called for a plan to demobilize soldiers who have been fighting for nearly 2 years. I mean, it's a nice plan if you can find them. So we have a very famous armed forces recruiting station in Times Square. It's the oldest one in the country in New York. It's been there since 1946. Interestingly, right after World War II, not before. But I've never seen them recruit quite this way. I have to give it to the recruiting officers of the Ukrainian army. Let's see how they go about it. Yeah, they don't need an office. They just grab motherfuckers. Look at that shit. He's just walking down the street. Honey, I need a pack of cigarettes. Be right back. 3 years later. So yeah, you gotta be careful walking around that town as a Ukrainian. Western officials have long lauded Zelensky's performance in the first year of the war, when his bravery and oratory rallied Ukrainians and Western backers. But Ukraine's recent struggles on the battlefield and in seeking further backing from the West have brought focus on the limited political experience of the former television comedian. Ukrainian soldiers expressed support for Zaluzhny and concerns that Ukraine would struggle to find a worthy replacement. "We all owe him," said a 31-year-old mortar man living in the southeast. "The paucity of official information on the general's status is frustrating," the soldier said. "It is very bad to leave the public without explanations during a war," he said. You should try our government. Some soldiers see evidence of interventions by Zelensky's office in military decision-making, particularly during last year's counteroffensive. If Zaluzhny is dismissed, it could be an effort to find a scapegoat for that operation's failure, they said. "They have to hang it on somebody," said Major Arislav Pasternak, who took part in the counteroffensive and is serving in the southeast. Still, Pasternak said he didn't expect the general's departure, if confirmed, to have a major impact. "Not much will change, but there will be no better replacement," he said. Okay, so it does sound like this is a case where Zelensky is losing the war. His big counteroffensive, his big push didn't work out, and he's looking for someone to hang it on. And particularly, it sounds like he is intimidated by the popularity of this general, given that this is the most corrupt country in Europe without a stable, entrenched system. I would imagine it's not out of the question that you get a military coup if things get bad enough there. That's pure speculation on my part, but it really looks like he's afraid of this general's popularity, and also looking to use him as a scapegoat. Keaton, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, that's exactly the way it sounds to me. I mean, there's only so much blame you can assign, right? I mean, it's an unwinnable war. And it's on Zelensky that he allowed his people to just be run through this meat grinder. That's on him. That's not on the generals. And so it makes sense he'd be looking for someone to lay this on too.
Right, right. It's interesting, and as you point out, okay, so they're going to give him $50 billion. Who cares? You need soldiers. You need soldiers. What's the average age now on the front line? 42?
Yeah. So, I mean, right. I mean, it doesn't look, well, that's what I was sort of getting at, is that, I mean, you could throw more money at this and keep it going for a little more time, but the outcome is already done. Right. It's already settled.
Right. It's going to end where people with any sense said it was going to end from the beginning, right back at the territory that Russia took. That's it. You could have ended this when Johnson actually went with a peace proposal that was shot down.
Yeah, that was April of 2022. That was less than 60 days into the fighting. And it could have ended before day one of the fighting.
Hey, come see us do a live stand-up show. We're going to be in Omaha, Des Moines, Milwaukee, Lansing, Michigan, Bend, Oregon, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, Philadelphia, Avenel, New Jersey, Boston, Palm Springs, and more. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets. See you at a live show.